The morning started with sunlight pouring through the blinds, slicing golden lines across our kitchen floor. Emily was humming softly, a tune she always played when she felt at peace. We had been trying to enjoy our quiet life in Oak Ridge Estates, a neighborhood that promised safety, serenity, and community values. What they didn't tell us was that those words only applied if you bowed down to the HOA president, Derek Langston. For months, Derek had been on our case. It started small. Letters about the color of our mailbox, complaints about the height of our fence, fines for having our garbage can visible for more than 6 hours. I had learned to tune it out. I'd done time in the Army, real discipline, real authority, and I wasn't about to lose sleep over a man who wore designer shoes to HOA meetings. But Emily wasn't built for conflict. Every letter rattled her nerves. She'd look at me and say, "Can't we just give in and repaint the shed, Jack? Please?" And every time I'd tell her the same thing. It's not about the shed anymore. It's about control. That morning, we were finally beginning to feel normal again. I'd made her breakfast. We'd talked about maybe taking a weekend trip to the mountains, and she'd gone outside to water her plants on the porch. The air was cool and still, peaceful, until the roar of engines shattered it. I heard it before she did, a deep, rolling growl that grew louder by the second. My stomach dropped. I'd heard that sound in Afghanistan, in convoys and chases. It wasn't the kind of sound that belonged in a quiet suburban street. Emily stepped off the porch, shielding her eyes from the sun. "Jack, what is that?" The engines turned the corner and my blood went cold. 5 motorcycles, chrome gleaming, black leather jackets, boots heavy on the asphalt. They weren't the usual neighborhood bikers out for a Sunday ride. These men had a presence, thick, muscular, mean, and on their jackets, stitched in bold red letters, was a patch that read HOA Enforcement Division. It was absurd, surreal, like something out of a bad movie. They rolled to a stop in front of our house, cutting their engines one by one, until the only sound left was the ticking of cooling metal. Their leader, a bald man with a jagged scar running down his cheek, dismounted first. He took off his sunglasses slowly, letting his cold, gray eyes scan our porch. Emily froze. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice barely steady. The man smirked. "Ma'am, we're here on behalf of the Oak Ridge HOA." Her brow furrowed. "You're with the HOA?" "That's right," he said, pulling a crumpled paper from his vest. "You've been ignoring notices about an unapproved structure on your property. Mr. Langston wants it handled." I was standing in the kitchen, watching from the window. I couldn't hear every word, but I could see the body language, the arrogance, the deliberate intimidation. They weren't there to deliver a message. They were there to scare her. Emily took a step back. "My husband's not home," she lied. "You'll need to come back later." The bald man chuckled, glancing at the others. "Oh, we'll wait. No harm in making sure you get the message loud and clear." That was enough. I set down my coffee and walked through the door. "Message received," I said as I stepped onto the porch. "Now you can leave." The leader turned, sizing me up like a wolf studying prey. Well, Mr. Tough Guy himself. Langston said you'd be the type to run your mouth." I didn't respond. I just stared at him, reading his stance, his weight distribution, his reach. Every small detail that could matter if this turned ugly. He smirked again. "You think you're better than the rest of this neighborhood, huh?" Too good to follow the rules. I crossed my arms. "I follow rules that make sense. You're trespassing. You've got 30 seconds to get off my property." One of the bikers snorted. "Or what?" I took a slow step forward. "Or I make you." The bald one laughed, a deep, mocking sound that made Emily flinch. "Listen, hero," he said. "You might have scared the board with your tough talk, but we're not pencil pushers. We're here to make sure people respect authority." "Authority?" I repeated. "You mean Derek Langston's ego?" He grinned wider. "You've got a smart mouth. Maybe you need a little help learning manners." The others started chuckling, taking casual steps forward, spreading out just enough to box me in. They thought they were in control. They had no idea what kind of man they were dealing with. "Jack," Emily's voice trembled. "Please, don't." I didn't move my eyes from the leader. "Go inside, sweetheart." "But now." She hesitated, then turned and went inside, closing the door quietly behind her. That's when the bald man's tone changed. "Cute wife," he said softly. "Would be a shame if she had to see something she didn't like." My world went still. That single sentence flipped a switch inside me, a switch I hadn't touched since the war. My breathing slowed. My hands didn't shake. My vision narrowed. My hearing sharpened. All I could think was they threatened her. I walked back into the garage without a word. The men laughed behind me, calling out taunts, thinking I'd run to hide. When I came back out, the laughter stopped. In my hand was a crowbar. Nothing fancy, just cold, heavy steel. I rested it on my shoulder and walked toward them. My face was calm, my eyes steady. "You've got one last chance," I said quietly. "Get on your bikes and leave." The leader grinned, but I saw the flicker of doubt in his eyes. "You really think you can take us all?" I didn't answer. I just kept walking. The first one to move was the youngest, big, strong, but sloppy. He lunged forward like a bar brawler, hands up high. I sidestepped, caught his arm, and twisted. The crack of his elbow joint made the others flinch. Before he hit the ground, I kicked his leg out, sending him sprawling onto the pavement. The next two came at once. I ducked under a swing, used my shoulder to slam the second into his own bike, and drove the crowbar into the ground between them, loud enough to send a shock through their nerves. The bald leader pulled a switchblade. "You think you're some kind of hero?" he hissed. I stared him down. "No, I'm a husband." He lunged. I stepped aside, caught his wrist, twisted the knife from his hand, and tossed it across the driveway. He tried to throw a punch, but I drove my shoulder into his chest, sending him flying backward into his Harley. He hit the gas tank with a hollow thud and slid to the ground. Within 30 seconds, the fight was over. The air was thick with the smell of gasoline and sweat. The bikers lay scattered across the driveway, groaning, bruised, humiliated. Emily peeked out through the window, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Not from fear, but from relief. I crouched beside the bald man, his chest heaving. "You tell Langston," I said, my voice low and steady, "if he ever sends anyone to my house again, I'll stop being polite." He looked up at me, fear replacing arrogance. What are you?" I stood. "A man who's done being pushed around." I turned my back to them and pointed to the road. 3 minutes. If you're still here when I come back out, I call the real cops." They didn't wait 3 minutes. Within one, their engines were roaring again, tires screeching as they sped down the street, like wolves retreating from a bigger predator. As the sound faded, I finally felt my heart beat again. Emily ran out to me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "Jack," she whispered, "what have you done?" I kissed the top of her head. "What I had to." She trembled. "They'll tell Langston." "I hope they do," I said, "because next time, he's the one I'll be talking to." The sun had shifted by then, the light turning harsh against the pavement, highlighting the scuffed tire marks and the dented bikes they left behind. For the first time in months, Oak Ridge Estates was silent. No HOA notices, no smug letters, just quiet. But deep down, I knew that calm wouldn't last. Derek Langston wouldn't take humiliation lightly. And something told me, the real fight was only just beginning.